Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Emily Freud joining me. Hi Emily.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Jackie.
So, a little bit about Emily. Emily, in another life, she makes TV. She's worked on award winning TV programs, including Educating Yorkshire, First Dates, and SAS. Who Dares Win, as well as developing original programming for the main broadcasting. So, this is she has a lifelong fixation with stories and characters, and that threads through her work and ultimately led to her pursuing a career in writing. So her debut book was My Best Friend's Secret, which was published in 2021. Have you got it there? Yep, great. And What She Left Behind was published in 2022. And book number 3 is to be published this year. She lives in London with her husband and 2 small children. And I just wanted to mention that I have been reading What She Left Behind. Unfortunately, I haven't quite finished it, but absolutely loving it. I'm just over halfway, I think. And I wish I had more time to spend to get to know what had happened. But it's the sort of book that you want to read, I'd say, in a night because you do want to keep reading it to know what's happening. So yeah, I can't wait to read it again tonight and hopefully finish it off.
I hope you enjoyed the ending. There's quite a big twist in that one.
Yeah, I can see. I'm not guessing it, but I can see that, yeah, there's a lot of complex things happening. So can't wait to find out. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Just wondering if you want to start off by telling us about your books.
Sure. So I write psychological thrillers with quite a big suspense element in them, especially my last book. And my first book, my debut, My Best Friend's Secret, is about a young woman called Kate, who's a recovering alcoholic. She hasn't drunk for 6 years. Her life is back on track. She's got a gorgeous fiance, lovely place to live, brilliant job, and then an old friend comes back from her past, who reconnecting with them sort of makes everything suddenly start to crumble. So that was my debut, and then What She Left Behind, which we were just talking about, is, I would say, that's my lockdown book. It's set in the countryside in this really kind of bleak forest in this gorgeous mid-century house, and the perfect fresh start ends up, as they often do in these kind of books, ends up not being quite so perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And could you tell us, like, it sounds like you had a really interesting career and probably a very busy career, but we did mention like you've always liked stories and that. What made you take that first step to write the first book?
Well, I'd always wanted to write a book, and I tried so many times in my 20s, and I just didn't have the patience or probably the tools that I needed to really commit to finishing it. And I think through having my career where it's all, even though I work in factual TV documentaries, you're still working out how to tell a story, and what scenes you need to get to tell a specific character's or contributor's story. So, and being in the edit and having to create a film out of someone's life and all of that, it really helped me gain the tools I needed when I did later in my sort of 30s sit down to have another go at it. And it just sort of flowed in a way that it hadn't before. And suddenly I realised I'd written a beginning, middle and end.
And then when you've done that, how hard or easy did it you find it to actually get something published?
So when I first wrote that first book, I didn't actually think I was ever going to get published. I just wanted to see whether I could do a beginning, middle and end on that scale of a whole book. And then I sort of finished it. I showed it to my husband. He said it was really good. I didn't believe him. And I actually had a friend who was an author, and they suggested I send it to a professional reader for notes. And I just thought, you know what, why not? I'll do that. And they read it and they started talking about what I should do before I start looking for an agent. And I was sort of expecting, I was expecting them just to go, oh, it was a really nice effort. Well done. Back to the day job. So I did the changes and I just started sending it out. I made a spreadsheet. I found out which agents were looking for that sort of novel. And I got rejected a lot, but my lovely agent Teresa took me on. That first book I wrote actually never got published. But now looking back, I'm kind of glad that it didn't. It was sort of like my first pancake. It was probably quite delicious, but very badly shaped. So while I was getting rejected all over the place with that book, I wrote another book, which ended up being My Best Friend's Secret, which Quirkers bought. So it wasn't a straight journey to getting published. It was a lot of hope stashed and all that. But I think through my career in TV, I was used to having the door slammed in my face. So it was fine.
Yeah. And that first book, is that something you think you might ever go back and try and fix up a bit?
I think if I had someone with a really good idea, or if I came up with a really good idea of how to sort of add another layer to it or something, but you know, I'd never written a book before, and I've actually written 5 books now, and 3 of them will have been published by the time the 3rd comes out. And so I've written 2 that have never got published, and I see them more as learning experiences and sort of learning my trade almost. And I needed to write those books to get the other books published in a way. So I don't see them as a loss.
And we've got quite a few people watching, so just wanted to say to the people watching, if you've got any questions for Emily, please type them in comments and I can read them out. Belinda said she was fortunate to win an e-copy of your book when you were author for the day, and she loved it, and she wonders when there'll be paperbacks released in Australia.
I think they are coming quite soon. I believe it's coming in the beginning of this year, or maybe the spring. I'm really sorry, I don't have the exact date, but I can find out.
Yeah, maybe you can find out and do a post in our group when you know, because that would be great. Because I know when I read your book, I think I read it on Kindle.
Yeah. All right, I will do that. Thanks so much, Belinda, for reading it. I'm so pleased you enjoyed it.
And Kelly wonders what book you learnt the most from.
I would probably always say the last book I've written, because I think it actually gets harder in a lot of ways to book, because you're sort of using up all your tricks as you go, and you're having to learn new tricks to put into the next book. My new book, which is coming out this year, is quite different to my first 2 books. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's the best book I've ever written. But I found it really hard to get that first draft out. And I spent a lot of time waiting to sort of collide with the answer to lots of missing questions I had. And I find that process really painful. But because it was so hard, I think it is one of the best books I've written.
Yeah. And you said like your 3rd book is out this year. When is that out?
So it's going to be out on ebook in November.
Okay.
Ebook and audiobook in November. And then I know in the UK it's going to be out in, I think, in the spring in paperback, but that might be a little bit later. If you're over in Australia or New Zealand, I'm not sure. I don't think they even know yet. We don't even have a title for the new book. We're currently we're currently in a bit of a muddle of what to call it.
And is it same genre?
It is the same genre, so it is a psychological suspense. But I would say that my first two books are sort of have elements of domestic noir in them, whereas this one I would say is sort of a bit more of a crime thriller in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But then it does have some of the tropes of the sort of, domestic sort of in a way. Yeah.
And is it still being edited at the moment? Is that where it's at?
Yeah, so I am currently working on the structural edit, which is due in at the end of the month. So I am feverishly trying to finish it. Yeah, it's a really exciting stage of writing a book because it's all sort of coming together, and you know your characters really well, you know the plot, and it's all working, and then you can really start to have fun with the writing, because until this point I'm like, well, it might all change. I might not have this bit, so I don't want to spend like a day on a paragraph because it might be wasted time. So this is the point where you can really start writing.
And what have you found had come first, the plot, characters, or the location? And has that been the same for every book?
So I normally have an initial idea of what I want to. Well, it's actually very different. So for What She Left Behind, I came up with the location for this first because during the lockdown, I don't know what it was like for you guys, but I live in London, and everyone in London suddenly seemed to want to move out of London and sell their like 2-bedroom flats, which are quite expensive in London, and buy these sort of big rural detached houses in the middle of nowhere. And I became quite obsessed with this estate. There's an estate agent called The Modern Home, and they sell these gorgeous glass mid-century palatial things. And so I initially got that idea of a couple moving to this house in the woods. And I knew I wanted to write about, because I had 2 small kids and they were really small during the first lockdown. And that experience of mothering and isolation was something I really wanted to explore in a book. So it was lots of things that slowly trickled in, and then I often start a first draft and I don't have all the elements. I'm a pantster, by the way, so I start a book and I have no idea really what's going to happen at the end of it, and slowly the elements trickle in as I'm writing that first draft.
And what about what you like reading yourself? Is there anything you might have read lately you'd like to recommend to us?
Definitely. I actually have some books here. This is Lizzie Barber's second novel, Out of Her Depth. It's set in Italy. It's beautifully written, really tense, and it's lovely transporting yourself to such a gorgeous place. Charlotte Duckworth's The Wrong Mother. This is her new thriller. I think it's my favourite one of hers. The characters are incredible. You think you've worked it out, but you'll be completely wrong. And she's just amazing at what she does. I've got a couple that I haven't got the covers for because I read on ebook. I love Catriona Ward. I don't know if anyone's read Sundial. It's really dark, quite horror-y. But I loved it. Yeah. And also I'm a big fan of Adrian McKinty. And it's a bit more, it's a sort of more on the action side of my thriller scale, but I love him, and The Island is amazing and The Chain is amazing.
Well, thanks for giving us some recommendations. We always love adding more books to our list. Could you tell us, when you've been writing, is there someone who's really encouraged your writing?
My husband is very encouraging. He is a big reader and book hoarder, which, I mean, when we moved in together that first time and I saw the boxes of books I was going to have to somehow incorporate into my life, I was terrified. And he is lovely and encouraging, and he's always the first person who reads my books. I've got an amazing agent who's really passionate about my writing. And it's funny because when you first have a book out, all these people sort of come up the woodwork that you haven't, like old school friends and people you haven't heard from for ages. And actually, it's lovely getting those messages from people you haven't heard from for ages, just saying, "Oh, I read your book and I loved it. Well done. It's really nice." And yeah, no, everyone's been really lovely.
And what about research for your books? What sort of research have you found that you've been doing?
So my new book is part set in Thailand.
Okay.
So it's about some backpackers who went to Thailand 20 years ago. And I went to Thailand backpacking 20 years ago. And so it's about a couple that went backpacking in 2002, and the girlfriend never returned, and the boyfriend's never been out of suspicion. And it's about a true crime documentary series being made about that. So there's a lot of going back in time to Thailand. So obviously I was there in 2002. My memory's pretty hazy, mainly because of all the drinking and the fun having. So I had to go back and refresh my memory and do a lot of research into Thailand. But the good thing I think about being a writer these days is that YouTube, you can literally put anything into YouTube, like getting the train down to the islands or something, and there will be someone who's literally filmed it second by second, their journey. So I mean, I don't know what I would have done if I was a writer 50 years ago.
Did you get to visit there again, or?
I would love to go, and I keep saying to my husband, we need to take the kids to Thailand. But I think they're a little bit too young for the journey at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not brave enough to take a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old on a plane that far.
Yeah. Well, hopefully one day you get to go back there again. What about book reviews? Is that something, do you read your reviews? And if you do, what have you found?
I mean, reading reviews, it's really hard not to, and to be honest, I think it's quite helpful to read your reviews to see what people are picking up on, maybe didn't quite get something right. I think I love reviews, and I'm thrilled when anyone takes the time to read my book and then write about it. I find it just amazing every time I see one go up. I mean, I feel like I don't like every book I read. I don't like everyone's trainers. I don't like some fruit, and I don't expect everyone to like my books. So I think it's completely valid if my writing style doesn't match up to someone's reading style.
And have you had any contact maybe from readers, anything that's like maybe really touched you or really surprised you that you'd like to share with us?
Absolutely. My debut, My Best Friend's Secret, this one, I wrote that book because I basically, in my 20s, I had a very difficult relationship with alcohol, and it ended with me at 28 having to stop drinking. And I had all this sort of stuff buzzing around my head about that period of my life. And my way, I think, of processing emotions and stuff that's happened to me is by writing it down and putting a sort of beginning, middle, and end to it. And although this book is completely fiction and it's not about me, it's still, I used my journey getting sober to sort of colour Kate, my main character's story. And I've forgotten what the question was, sorry.
Anything that a reader that might have contacted.
Oh yes, sorry. Sorry. So a lot of it in there is really personal stuff in that book, and I've had so many women contact me and say how much it meant to them that I told this story, because they felt that it was a really authentic depiction of someone going through that. And I've had people who are still drinking and want to stop message me, and I've had people who've stopped and already and said how much they related to it. So all of those messages were just, some of them made me cry. I was so touched.
Yeah. And do you find you have any writing rituals?
I suppose I always try and write in the mornings when I'm most fresh. And my writing rituals change, I think, from what part of writing I'm at. So if I'm doing a first draft, I'll set myself a word count, and I have to just do that word count a day. And I can often only do it for about 3 hours because it's so exhausting. And you basically are sitting at a keyboard going, this is terrible. This is terrible. And after a few hours of doing that, you just go a bit crazy. And then once I'm in the edit process, I can do it for the whole day. But I wouldn't say I had lots of coffee, probably.
Yeah. And do you have a favourite place to write?
So officially, it's my desk here where I am right now, but unofficially, it's in bed. So, which my husband always has a go at me about. But yeah.
Yeah. Is that
especially in the winter.
late at night in bed, or waking up early?
Or just in the day, Jackie.
Okay. Sounds
not
good
to sound like a slob, but yeah, sometimes. But it's a really cold winter day.
Yeah.
I take my laptop back to bed.
No, I can totally, not with writing, but with reading. Like, I'd say reading in my bed would be the most favourite place. So I can relate.
Oh, good.
And what do you hope readers will love about your books?
I love nothing more when I read a book when I completely zone out of everything else going on in my life, and I'm just transported somewhere else, and I'm totally sucked in by the plot, and I'm desperate to know what's going to happen at the end. And I love it when an author tricks me and I don't get it. So I'm trying to do is sort of give my readers what I love about reading. So I'm hoping that I have worked hard enough to sort of lay the foundations of a really good puzzle.
Yeah. And do you ever get writer's block? And if you do, what do you do about it?
Yeah, so I definitely get writer's block, and I find the most painful part of the process of writing a book is coming up with a new idea. And it often takes me a couple of months to come up with a new idea. I'm not an author who goes to their agent and editor and 5 top lines to show you, let's discuss. It takes me a while to develop the ideas. And I have to read a lot and watch a lot of TV and talk about it to people, to my husband a lot, to my agent a lot, and then slowly the elements all come together. What I'm really excited about my new book is the fact the main character is a documentary filmmaker making this documentary about this couple in Thailand. And obviously with my background in TV and making documentaries, I was able to use a lot of my experiences to tell that story. And the main character is called Cassidy, and I love her so much. She's so tough and vulnerable and brave and all of this stuff. And but it took me, in the back of my head, I'd always wanted to tell the story from the point of view of someone trying to tell a story. And I just never had the other elements to put that in. And then, so it took me a while sitting on the Thailand idea to get the other idea on top of it. Okay. And that was a big element of writer's block. And I sat around moping for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then it came.
Yeah. And what have you found so far to be the most difficult part of the publishing journey?
I think just how long everything takes. You write a book and then it doesn't come out for ages, and then you're writing another book. It's a really slow process. I do find self-promotion quite daunting. in a way that I wasn't expecting to. I mean, I find this sort of thing really fun, but having to like be on Twitter and everything can be quite daunting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love it, and I mean, if someone told me I would be sat here with a third book about to be published, 5 years ago, I would be so happy. So no, it's great.
And like you said about promotions and that, how have you been able to get out there and maybe go to some writers' festivals or do promotions in bookstores? What sort of things have you been able to do?
So I went to the Harrogate Book Festival, my first one last year, which was just incredible. I don't know if anyone listening knows it. It's like this book festival that happens in Harrogate every year, and there's loads of talks, and there's so many other crime writers there, and I managed to meet loads of other writers and become friends. And obviously, because my debut came out during the pandemic, so it was a really weird experience, quite lonely. So it was really nice to finally meet all the people that I've been chatting to on Instagram and stuff. I also, for my book launch, for What You Left Behind, I had a big event, and we did a question and answer, a Q&A, which was really fun. So just getting out there and meeting people after we've all been stuck in our houses for so long was great.
No, that's great. Well, thanks so much for talking to me. I need to get back and finish your book.
Oh, do let me know what you think, Jackie. I'm desperate to know what you...
I will do. I think I just passed the part that said part 2. So I've read a few chapters in part 2.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, do let me know.
Yeah, and I'll be looking forward to reading more books of yours and hearing about, really interested in the Thailand one. That sounds really interesting. I went to Thailand about 4 years ago, so we'll be interested.
Beautiful.
Yeah, will be interesting to read that. And hope you can be involved again in our group. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been so fun. Thanks, Jackie, and thanks so much everyone who's tuned in to listen to us.
Thanks for the questions from people. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.